Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones, back here today for a bit of an assortment of topics here. Throughout the off-season, there aren't going to be as many instances where I have a specific topic to really fill up a normal episode length. So we're going to have a lot of episodes like this where I just kind of bounce around a little bit from topic to topic. So we're going to talk about NIL, we're going to talk about revenue sharing and what that looks like in the future for Purdue basketball, Purdue football. Talk a little bit about Purdue's place in all of this. Going to talk about the NFL draft a little bit. Going to talk about a number of things here today. So let's jump on in. If you don't already, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. We're going to be talking Purdue sports all summer here. So come join the conversation. And you can always send over questions, things you want me to talk about on the show. You can do that on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. You can email me, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Send me some stuff, guys. We got 17 weeks, I think, until football season gets started. So lots of time to talk about whatever you would like, go in whatever direction you would like. And be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. We've got a post-spring portal episode coming up. We'll look across the Big Ten in both football and basketball here coming up. So we got some good stuff. You'll want to be subscribed. I wanted to start, though, with talking about NIL, revenue sharing, overall player compensation, and where Purdue basketball is at there. Because Matt Norlander over at CBS Sports, one of the best in the business, had a really good article maybe a week or so ago now about different programs and where they are at in the NIL hierarchy and where they are at and what they're able to pay their roster. It's going to take some getting used to here to not just refer to that as NIL, because with revenue sharing, NIL will be part of it, but so will just pure revenue sharing. It was interesting to hear him talk about how much the money in the sport has exploded. And that is certainly partially just from teams wanting to outbid one another, teams really investing in this at a high level. Revenue sharing has opened the door for far more compensation. You aren't as reliant on donors. You still are. I don't think NIL is going away. I know there is supposed to be a clearinghouse through the House settlement. I am very skeptical that that's going to be tremendously effective, but it's going to be interesting to monitor what this all looks like, because Matt Norlander pointed to 10 programs, including Indiana and Michigan from the Big Ten, as programs that will or could reach the $10 million mark in roster compensation for the upcoming season. And then he looked at another 14 programs, including Purdue, in the $8 million range. And from the Big Ten, USC and UCLA were also on that list in the $8 million range. And it provided a really interesting look for me at what some of the numbers really are here and what programs are there. There aren't a ton of big surprises in this. You can go find the article over on CBS Sports. It was really interesting, though. And it really reflects to me that Purdue has found a way to really make this work in basketball. I don't know that when this all started and when the collective business got booming, that it was a good thing for Purdue. A lot of these programs that are on the list are these big state U programs that have massive, massive fan bases. And a lot of these programs have a lot of fans that are highly passionate that didn't go there. And that's not Purdue. Purdue's fan base is strong. It's very passionate, but it is smaller in the sense that there aren't that many Purdue fans who didn't go to Purdue. I've lived in Indiana my whole life. I know very few Purdue fans who didn't go there or at least have a really strong connection to it. Whereas there are schools like Indiana, like Michigan, like Illinois that have massive fan bases, a lot of which are just, people in the state gravitating towards the flagship school in the state. And Purdue has really done a nice job on the basketball front at making sure that NIL has never been an issue. Purdue was able to keep Zach Edey. When he was looking at the NBA after his junior year, Purdue was able to get him to return for his senior year. That didn't happen for free. No way. We don't know the actual numbers, but you hear a lot of speculation. Zach Edey didn't come back for free. It's been able to keep Braden Smith for 4 years. It's been very well documented that other programs have been calling on Braden Smith, going back a couple of years now, to where, other programs were looking at him, tampering with him after his freshman year, after his sophomore year. Well, Purdue's been able to keep him for 4 years. Another situation that didn't come for free. Fletcher Lawyer and Trey Kaufman-Renn are back. Those guys would have some serious value out there on the open market if they didn't decide to come back to Purdue. But they've never once wavered. Oscar Clough comes in. I don't know that was some NIL-centric bidding war, but Purdue obviously got the job done there and put down something that was substantive enough to get him on board. Omer Meyer probably didn't come for free. Not when you're playing professional ball overseas. You're not coming over to take a pay cut. So with these numbers, and I do think the revenue sharing component is really interesting, because the part that we don't really know right now, what each school is committing to football specifically, basketball specifically, as a revenue sharing breakdown. We don't know that for Purdue. There have been some estimates out there, but nothing from Purdue has become public information. And I'm curious to see if all of this does become public information for the public schools under the Freedom of Information Act. I don't know. I would assume that stuff can all become public, but I guess I'm not positive. Purdue's gotten this done, though. The vibes around Purdue basketball now are as good as they've ever been. This has been a really tremendous stretch for Purdue in the most uncertain time in recent memory in the sport of college basketball, in college athletics in general. There aren't that many programs that have operated at a really consistent level over the last 10 years. And Purdue has raised the bar over that time. But you look at even some blue blood programs. Kentucky has been a roller coaster. North Carolina is all over the place. UCLA and Indiana have been largely non-competitive during this time. Duke and Kansas have been good, but even Kansas has had some rough waters. Virginia won a national title and didn't bounce back well. Villanova's all over the place since Jay Wright retired. It's just a fascinating look to me that Purdue has been the model of consistency here when Purdue is in a strong place from roster compensation, but Purdue is not going out and buying new rosters every year. But Purdue has identified something that really works for it. It is still very invested in high school recruiting, something that I think you're going to see teams move back to more. I don't know that it's fully sustainable to go out and buy a new roster every single year. We'll see if it is. There are lots of programs that are trying, but I'm not sure that that's going to work. I know it won't in football on a year-over-year basis, and I really don't know that it will in basketball either. But Purdue has invested heavily in high school recruiting. It has built itself core groups of players, and it is supplemented from the portal when needed. Purdue is not anti-portal. Purdue has never been anti-portal, but Purdue is not building its roster through it. It's using it as a supplement tool, and it's done so very effectively. We can say that, going into this year, The proof will need to be in the pudding. Purdue will have to show that going out and getting Oscar Clough and Liam Murphy and Omer Mayer doesn't count as a transfer, but getting him late in the cycle, Purdue has to show that this is going to work, but Purdue's going to be preseason number 1, number 2, number 3, somewhere in there. There aren't many teams you look at for next year and think they're going to be better than Purdue. This is a wonderful, wonderful spot for Purdue to be in. And the enthusiasm around the program is at an all-time high. Purdue's always had a really loyal, really passionate basketball fan base. But, man, I mean, what you saw with the portal this year and the interest of what Purdue was going to do was really big time. The conversations around it, the amount of texts I got from people that I don't even talk to that much about what Purdue's doing in the portal, what's going on with scheduling, things like that. Purdue's fans are incredibly invested right now. And it just shows what Purdue has really built here. It's been a really impressive growth. This is the best Purdue basketball's ever been, and it's not a bad program by any means. It's one of the more winning programs in the history of the sport. I think it's the winningest program to not win a national title. It's done so many really good things. But what Purdue has become over the last 5 years has really, really been impressive. Purdue hasn't been worse than a 4 seed in a decade now in the NCAA tournament. Purdue hasn't finished outside of the top 4 in the Big Ten just once since 2015, I think, because Purdue did finish tied for 4th this year. The Big Ten tournament seeding really gets that misconstrued. Purdue finished tied for 4th. This is Purdue thriving. In an era of uncertainty, Purdue has really committed at the highest level to making sure that its basketball program is able to compete nationally and put itself in the spot that it wants to be in. And I think it's noteworthy just how committed Purdue has become to athletics. There is no denying the amount of money that is in college athletics now pales in comparison to what it was just 20, 25, 30 years ago. It's night and day. I mean, this $1 billion TV contract, when you really think about that, it's pretty wild. But Purdue has fully committed to winning right now. And it's something that at times has been a fair question, Purdue's investment, Purdue's commitment. You know, if you go back, there was the time when Matt Painter flirted with Missouri because Purdue's facilities were poor and Purdue was not paying assistant coaches a particularly high wage. That got rectified, but it needed Matt Painter to almost leave for Missouri to get to that point. You know, I know Danny Hope, his program was woefully underfunded to compete in the Big Ten level where Purdue wanted to. The end of the Joe Tiller era, you saw Purdue losing a lot of assistants to other programs because Purdue was not paying them particularly well. Purdue has not always been at the front of the sport when it comes to spending. Purdue certainly, from an NIL perspective, was not one of the initial leaders. It feels like forever ago, and somehow Nigel Pack still has college eligibility. But man, you remember that? $400,000 felt like the craziest number ever. Now that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing now. But Purdue was a little bit of a slow adapter. But where Purdue is right now, it's in a really good spot. And I think it's been impressive, especially to see Purdue commit to football. Because basketball, Purdue didn't have a choice. I mean, you have one of the best coaches in the country. You've had a really good run of really good players. Purdue had to go in at a pretty high level there. But on the football side, look, Purdue is really, under Mike Babinski, done everything you could ask. Jeff Brom didn't leave because of money. He was paid well. He was paid very well, and he's not getting paid more at Louisville. unless he signed an extension I'm not aware of that gave him a raise, he left to make about the same amount of money at Louisville. And that was a unique set of circumstances. There was nothing Purdue was going to do to keep Jeff Brom. But Purdue fully put its money where its mouth was there. Jeff Brom was well paid. His assistants were well paid. Ross-Ade Stadium got a major facelift during his time. You know, when he took over, Ross-Ade Stadium was pretty rough. That little scoreboard in the north end zone at that time, that's 1990s stuff. The video board in the south end zone, that was rough. That wasn't a great looking video board. That thing was dilapidated. You know, I remember hearing Purdue administrators talk about how they would just have to hope that it worked when they turned it on for games. Now it looks great. Purdue completely redid the south end zone. Purdue built the Tiller Tunnel. Ross-Ade Stadium looks really good. Mike Babinski put lights up for the football stadium. This program didn't have lights on its stadium until 2017. Funding wasn't the issue for Ryan Walters. That was a hire that Purdue, really went out of the box on, and it didn't work. But after just 2 years, Purdue committed to cutting bait, paying a $9 million buyout. That's not messing around. Purdue wasn't messing around there. And for Purdue to act swiftly, Purdue didn't dilly-dally. Purdue fired him the day after the bucket game, pays him his money, pays Graham Harrell his money. You got $1 million coordinator for the first time. And now I don't recall if any of these guys are $1 million coordinators now. I think they might be. But Purdue committed there, and it hires Barry Odom, and it's paying him very well. He's making a wonderful salary. And you just look at Purdue being invested, and the spring portal right now has gone very well. We'll talk about that more on next week's podcast. But, I don't know that this NIL revenue sharing world will fully bridge the gap in football between the top of the Big Ten and the bottom. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, they're going to operate in their own category, but it should help. If you have the $20.5 million for revenue sharing and you're committing a sizable amount of that to football, it should help bridge the gap a little bit. And you'll take all the help you can get if you're Purdue. It'll be interesting to see what the talent acquisition looks like moving forward and over time. But right now, Purdue's invested well. I'm very curious to see, and I think this was another Norlander article about the non-basketball school or the non-football schools in basketball, like the Big East, like a Gonzaga. When you don't have football to commit revenue sharing money for, you can put more into basketball. Now, there's the double-edged sword of that how much money are you actually making if you don't have a football team? Because all of this money is football money. These TV contracts are all about football. Sure, they like airing basketball. The NCAA has the March Madness contract. The Big Ten basketball contract, it's all on the same deal, the $1 billion TV deal. But that's almost all for football. This is all football money. So it'll be interesting to see as we learn a little bit more about some of the payouts here. Is it real that these schools that are basketball only are be able to spend a little more money than the rest? I don't know, but I'm curious to see what that looks like in the long run. Because these Big Ten and SEC schools, the money difference between those two and everyone else is massive. It's massive. I think in both football and basketball, you're about to see the Big Ten and SEC just get more and more dominant over time. You saw it this weekend in the NFL draft, where 26 of the 32 first-round picks were from the Big Ten and SEC. And if you want to throw in a little caveat there, that Travis Hunter was one of those 6 and he was the number 1 recruit in the country and just chose a very unique path, I think that's a worthwhile asterisk too. The Big Ten and the SEC dominate from a high school recruiting standpoint in football, and that still is the best indicator of what type of success you will have in the national level. You saw this. The most picks in a single NFL draft, all 7 rounds by conference. Number 1 is this year, the SEC. Number 2 is this year, the Big Ten. That shows you how big the gap is from a talent standpoint. And it's good in the sense that, you know, your league is really doing well. But it's bad in the sense that, boy, you know, Purdue's schedules just get tougher and tougher with these teams in the league that are really talented. But it's where you want to be. It's absolutely where you want to be. These two conferences are going to dominate in football. I think they're going to dominate in basketball. Basketball is a little easier. It's not as much of an attrition game. It's not as much of a numbers game. But, you know, the Big Ten and SEC are in a league of their own. This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I'm here to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me, jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com, and let's protect you from life's everyday risks. I did want to close out here with a quick NFL draft thought. Purdue only has one player go. That's Marcus Bowe. He goes in the 5th round, I believe, to the New York Giants. He joins Tyrone Tracy out there. Look, it's a 1-11 team. That is what it is. This was not a year where it looked like Purdue was going to have much in terms of an NFL draft presence. There was some curiosity as to where Marcus Bowe would go. Seemed like he fell a little bit more. To me, he's a guy who can only play guard in the NFL, and that probably limits him a little bit. But nonetheless, Purdue gets someone in there. And it's an interesting time for Purdue guys in the NFL. This is something I keep a good eye on. Purdue has some guys around. Purdue doesn't have a ton of guys really starring. George Karlaftis is your big one. He's been really good in Kansas City. He's going to get a nice second contract here after this year. Yeah, after this year. Time flies. This is going to be his 4th year already. But like Raheem Mostert is in the twilight of his career. He was really out of the Dolphins' rotation at running back by the end of the year. Jawan Bentley's a free agent. He did really well in New England, got hurt last year. We'll see where he winds up. Some guys we'll see what the future holds. Aiden O'Connell out in Vegas. I don't know if he's going to be ever a starter, but he's someone who's going to stick around for a long time in the league. You have some young guys. Sanusi Kane was a special teamer. Corey Trice has dealt with injuries. Payne Durham, mostly a special teams guy. Do any of those guys have a breakout? David Bell, Charlie Jones haven't quite caught on. Good rookie year last year for Tyrone Tracy. Rondale Moore's dealt with a ton of injury stuff. We'll see what this year brings for him. I think it's going to be interesting to follow here, but I'm curious to see as well if there is some gap bridging from the difference in compensation now with rev share. Does this mean some of the more traditional recruiting points come back into play, like NFL players? It's not something that you're getting a bunch of guys because you have guys in the NFL, but you don't want that to be something that other programs can look and say, well, they don't have many players in the NFL. Purdue's had a nice little resurgence here. It was getting pretty bare after the Danny Hope, Darrell Hazel tenure. Brahms teams have sent some guys back in there now, and it's making it look better. But, you want to have those traditional recruiting selling points like NFL success. Because as crazy as it sounds, we are not too far away from the point where recruits don't really know who Drew Brees is, which is nuts, but it's just reality. So I'm curious to see if Purdue can have some of these guys really take a next step in the NFL. What Marcus Bowe does, I could see him sticking around. I think he's got to be a solid guard, whether he's a full-time starter or someone who can play left, right guard, an emergency tackle, something like that. We'll see. But, yeah, just the NFL draft fascinated me with, with Shedeur Sanders falling, with the Big Ten and SEC just cleaning up. You're going to see more of that, guys. You're going to see a lot more of that. So that's all I've got for this week. Next week, we're going to do a dive into where Purdue football is at post-spring. The spring portal's starting to wind down a little bit. It is closed, so no one can enter at this point. But obviously, guys have as long as they want to find a destination, as long as it makes sense so they get there. We'll take a look at everything we could kind of glean from spring practice, look at Purdue's portal haul here in the spring, which looks good. It looks good. So we'll talk about that next week. Send me over some Purdue football questions. Do it on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. Email, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Talk to you next week, guys. Take care.